Hello YouTube, Tai Chi Twins here. I'm Josh Rorty. I'm Jeremy Rorty. We've been doing a series of videos on creating your own wooden training weapons. Now, an important part of weapon training is impact training. You need to feel comfortable with hitting things with your weapon. Now, the only problem with wood weapons is after you hit things a lot with them, they start to splinter, chip, and shred. And so one way you can prevent that is through a hardening process. Even if you've gone through a hardening process, the weapons can still break and chip and shred. So we wanted to show you a couple of techniques that you might be able to use to increase the longevity of the training weapon to save you money in the long run. The most common training weapons are made out of bamboo or rattan. They're really easy to grow in your backyard, and it's really cheap if you ever need to replace it. The number one problem you face with rattan sticks is eventually they start to shred and splinter. A common way of repairing that is to simply add duct tape to the shredded area. Pretty much any Kali school you go to, you're going to see duct tape on sticks. In this case, it's starting to shred on the end opposite of where the duct tape's at, and you're going to be breathing all that dust and splinters, which can't be healthy, so at this point you pretty much got to throw this one out. You might still be able to use this stick to practice forms in the air, but you wouldn't want to use it as an impact weapon. As an experiment, we took one of our shredded sticks through the stabilization process. After about a week, it definitely increased in weight and hardness, but the shredded areas were still shredded. Pretty much a worthless cause. However, the unshredded parts were really hard. That tells me that if you were to stabilize it while it's brand new, the stick would last a lot longer. What if instead of shredding, your wooden weapon breaks? We ordered a pair of Phoenix cane from our supplier, but unfortunately one of them arrived broken. Now Karate Mart is awesome. They right away sent us a brand new one without any additional cost. And then they also suggested that we try gluing the old one together, and they pointed out that a lot of times the wood glue itself can be a stronger bond than the original bond of the fibers. Sounds like an easy fix, so let's try their suggestion and see how it works out. Here it is after it's done drying. If I zoom in real close, you can still see the crack there. But it's not like you can see a bunch of glue squishing out of it. If I bang it on the table, it's pretty strong. The guy from Karate Mart had suggested that the glue might bind stronger than the original fibers between the wood anyway. And it was a drop later than that broke the replacement. This is the replacement. I just had it sitting on a chair. It fell off of a chair and broke the Phoenix neck. You can see the little crack right there. More obvious because it's in the black part, and I could probably cover that up with some black felt tip marker of some kind. But here it is again. Banging that pretty hard, and it's not breaking as it did before. So definitely if it's a break, that's a long break, it's definitely best to use wood glue to fix it. As a side note, after I repaired the canes, I twisted my ankle pretty bad. For about 2 weeks I was stuck using them, and they held up to the full weight of my body. Here's a similar process that we've used to repair chips or holes in wooden weapons. This is a walking stick I'm working on making. Maybe I'll feature it in another video. But as I was sanding and working it down, it came up with this really large hole right there. I'm going to be using some wood glue, and here's my typical sawing setup. All I did is I was sawing on one of these leftover pieces of dowel from our nunchuck project. If you haven't seen that video, I'll put a link up here for you. I just did my sawing this time on top of a paper plate, and I just collect up all the sawdust. I collect up all the sawdust. If there's any big pieces that's left in here, get those out of there. I just want all the fine dust. Got a little bit of yellow plastic in there just from the device I was using to saw it with, but that's okay. You're not going to necessarily notice that once it's all bound together. You get it into a nice little pile, and then you add some wood glue to it. You want it the consistency of a thick oatmeal. I'm just going to use a toothpick to mix it all up.
I'm going to save some of those wood shavings there and maybe a little bit of that glue in case I need to change the consistency. But right there's looking pretty good. The key is that the glue, when it dries, it's going to shrink. So you want all of that saturated into those wood shavings. Once your mixture is prepared, you're just going to scoop it up and stuff it right down into the hole. Again, everything's going to shrink when the wood glue dries. So you want to leave it heaping, but you also want to make sure you push it down and all the cracks on the inside are filled. I'll smooth it off just a little bit. This is going to make sure that it's a little easier to deal with when I sand it. There's the hole all stuffed up with wood glue. Now I'm just going to let it sit there and dry. I'm going to come back in probably about 6 to 8 hours once I'm done beating up kids for the day, and I'm just going to sand it all smooth.
Here's an oak stick that we showed you in a previous video about how to harden wood weapons. Let's apply that technique to this stick and see how it works through the hardening process. Here it is after the stabilizing process. Can you tell where we filled it? I had a hard time finding it originally, but when you look really close, you can see it. That will be less obvious once we resand it and add the polyurethane. It seems like the Danish oil that we used didn't affect the integrity of the glue. It only changed the color of the glue, which now more closely matches the color of the stick. Because of our previous experiment, we didn't really expect to see as high of an increase in density because oak is a harder wood. In fact, we only saw a 16% increase after soaking them in the Danish oil for a week. However, that 16% was a significant increase of 26 grams altogether. I would argue that not only did we repair the chip in this stick, but we made it stronger than it was originally. Thanks for watching our video. If you enjoyed it, like it, and make sure to share that with a friend. Click the subscribe button and then hit that notification bell so you can catch our next exciting video.